Today on The Big Story, day one of the Trump impeachment hearings. What happened? The e-scooter ban, no longer just a transport issue. Find out why. And finally, local fashion brands, from humble beginnings to making waves. Hello and welcome to The Big Story, where we discuss the top news of today and explain why it matters. I'm Kimberly Jiao, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Now, the first day of the televised impeachment inquiry against US President Donald Trump ended this morning. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi started the inquiry in September of this year after a whistleblower complaint about a phone call between Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky came to light. Trump and other government officials were allegedly pressuring Ukraine to investigate the president's political rival, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. Trump has since denied that there is anything wrong with the call. He is currently seeking re-election in 2020. To tell us more, we have ST's foreign editor, Jeremy Aoyong. Hello.
Hi, Kim.
So could you tell us more about what happened today?
Okay, if you just want to talk about what happened today, that's easier. But as you noted in the intro, this impeachment inquiry was launched 1 month ago, well, more than a month ago. What happened today was the public part of the impeachment inquiry. Prior to this, they had been conducting these depositions, these interviews with maybe about a dozen witnesses, all behind closed doors. They did release transcripts and statements, but that was the extent that the public got to see of it. So the difference today was, it's on TV. You get to see the toing and froing, the questioning of the witnesses by the Democrats and the Republicans and their hired lawyers. So the two that showed up today were two career Foreign Service officers, one named William Taylor, one named George Kent. And they had been interviewed before as part of this process, so they didn't say all that much that was new. So what we got today was to see the interaction. And in terms of news, what we saw was they did reinforce a lot of what the initial whistleblower complaint that launched this whole impeachment inquiry. They did reinforce a lot of the accusations that were made there against Donald Trump. In terms of new news, William Taylor did talk about one instance of a phone call that he said a member of his staff had overheard between Trump and Gordon Sondland, which is a donor who got appointed as a diplomat to EU, and Trump was very interested in the Biden investigations. So what this means, again, this is not entirely new to us, this is something everybody assumed was true. What this means, it just undercuts Donald Trump's ability to say that the quid pro quo business that was taking place in Ukraine was purely being done by his underlings and nothing to do with him.
Okay.
Because this implicates him directly.
I see. So what would you say is your take on the progress so far? Is it likely that he's going to be impeached? I've been burned before by making predictions about Donald Trump. Okay.
So I will say the impeachment process has progressed quite swiftly. In the past month, a lot has happened to get to the stage that we are at now. And it does seem that the Democrats are quite firmly behind impeachment. And that would mean that if they take a vote, he will be impeached. You just need a simple majority in the House to impeach the president. The Democrats control the House. If they hold a vote, I find it quite likely that Donald Trump will be impeached. What happens beyond that is anybody's guess. Beyond that, the process goes to the Senate. So impeachment is like a prosecution, a pre-trial hearing, and then there's a trial in the Senate.
Okay.
So for conviction in the Senate, for him to be removed from office, that will require 2/3 of the Senate to back it. That feels highly unlikely. It would mean 20 Republican senators abandoning their own party to vote their own president out of office. That seems highly unlikely.
I see. Well, thanks for being so brave to take the risk and sharing your predictions with us, Jeremy. And if you'd like to read the full story and to keep up with this as it develops, do stay tuned to straitstimes.com. Now, the past week has seen multiple Meet the People sessions regarding the e-scooter ban, but some argue it's not just about the e-scooters anymore. Public safety was the crux of initial debates around the use of PMDs following multiple collisions with pedestrians, one of which resulted in the death of a woman. This culminated in the e-scooter ban from footpaths from November 5th. Since then, there have been a slew of Meet the People sessions with concerned riders all over Singapore, with as many as 6 sessions in one evening. And here with us today to share more is Transport Editor Karamjit Kaur. Hi Karam.
Hi Kimberly.
So what is the current situation?
So currently, you just said that this really has gone beyond just a transport issue. We're not just talking about e-scooters and where they are allowed and not allowed. If you look beyond that, there are really two ways in which this has taken off. One, of course, is the whole idea of jobs and the overall economy. So these riders, these PMD riders, these food delivery people who have been turning up at the Meet the People sessions, really the question for us is, who are these people? There are like 7,000 of these PMD food delivery people who are affected by the ban that doesn't allow them to use their e-scooters on public footpaths. But we're talking about a much bigger group here. Estimate we're looking at about like 30,000 people in the food delivery segment, and really beyond that, if you want to take it even further, the whole private hire business sector, your Grab drivers and all, that's easily another 50,000-60,000. So we're looking at like 100,000 people, and they're all part of what we call the gig economy, right? This economy that is essentially characterized by many jobs that are like short-term contracts or like freelance work, so everything but permanent jobs. So then if you understand where these people are coming from, then you get a sense of why they are so concerned, about the fact that if they're not allowed to use their e-scooters on public footpaths, that will then affect their livelihood. What can they do then? And our sense, talking to people on the ground, the riders themselves, is that majority of them, I would say 7, even 8 in 10, don't have a very high level of education. So probably PSLE or secondary schools, some school dropouts. So for them, what really are the options, right? Which is why you see NTUC has stepped in, Workforce Singapore that has stepped in to say that they are prepared and they're quite willing to work, with this lot to see if they can move on to move them on to other jobs. Right. So that's at one level, and then. So beyond that, the whole Meet the People session, that has also become quite politicized.
Right, so it's opened this question of, is it turning political? What's happening there?
Yeah, so I think we can safely say that yes, it has taken on a political slant. And if you look at where, it all started, I would go back to, during the first Meet the People session where the riders turned up. It was to meet with Home Affairs and Law Minister, Shanmugam, and he, in a Facebook posting after he met the riders, said that there was a certain character that was, sort of like lurking around and taking photos and possibly videos, and Minister actually identified him as Mr. Edmund Loke, who is a well-known opposition supporter, and he actually said, his behaviour was sneaky, to quote him, sneaky, unnecessary. So that kind of ended there and didn't really go further. Then, of course, a couple of days later, the biggest group of PMB riders, about 300 of them, turned up to, meet with Dr. Lam Pin Min,
yes,
who is the Senior Minister of State for Transport. And again, so this time it was a bit more open and visible. So we had Mr. Goh Ming Singh, who is Sec Gen of the People's Power Party, and he actually stood up and he asked questions. And so again, Dr. Lam in a Facebook posting after that used the terms irresponsible, abhorrent, and then that then prompted Mr. Goh to...
Actually, the fact that you're going to mention Mr. Goh Ming Singh's video, right?
Yes.
And actually, we do have a video of that, so let's have a look.
Nice.
Dr. Lam, please, don't be a crybaby. You have created a serious situation for people's livelihood. You break people's rice bowl, and that is politics.
Right, and what did you think of that?
Yeah, so very, rather,
Emotional.
very emotional, seems a bit agitated. But I think what to me is more interesting about that episode is that I think kind of then prompted Workers' Party chief Pritam Singh to jump in and to weigh in. So I think that was rather unexpected. And I don't know, perhaps he did that because, Mr. Goh was a former, Workers' Party a member, and Mr. Pritam Singh didn't quite say so explicitly, but it seemed as if he was trying to distance himself from the remarks made by Mr. Goh, and he talked about how opposition unity, in his words, remains a challenge. And then he went on to then say that as far as the Workers' Party is concerned, they believe in pushing for a better Singapore for all Singaporeans, and that the destruction of the opposition is not what their end, their end game is. Mr. Singh then went on to talk about how he believes that PMDs have a future in Singapore, and that he believes they will make a comeback when the infrastructure and the regulations can move in tandem. So the story kind of ends there. We'll have to see what happens next week beyond this. I won't be surprised if this becomes an issue during hustings. I mean, we're all expecting the next GE before the end of April. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it does come up as an issue. Let's just have to wait and see.
I guess it's still a bit too early to tell if it will be. But thanks for coming on to share more with us. And to read this full story, do head on once again to straitstimes.com. And now on to What's Trending, where Dylan will take us through the top trending stories of today. Dylan?
Thanks, Kim. It's time for What's Trending. First up, want to get your hands on a kawaii way to carry your fries and drink? Like the one I've got here, Hello Kitty fever returned to our shores this morning as the first country in the world to get our hands on the limited edition carrier. Here's what some of those who got their hands on one had to say.
Are you a Hello Kitty fan?
No, my wife is.
Are you excited about this because it's the first time the carrier is coming out over here?
Yeah, it looks cute lah. So yeah.
It's something we saw online, then maybe in future we can flip.
What brings you here to queue for the carrier?
Yeah, my friend asked me to come and buy for her.
Are you a Hello Kitty fan yourself?
Yes, that's why I bought two.
Yeah, like last time the scenario series is Melody.
Oh, okay.
So I think she will collect all the one set like that.
More for a collection lah, like as a collector.
I guess we'll collect us.
Last year's My Melody holder sold out in a flash, and it seems like the same can be said for the Hello Kitty edition. While the carrier costs $7.90 at McDonald's, some members of the public have already listed it online, hoping to resell it for a quick buck. The highest we've seen so far? $50 for Hello Kitty and $40 for My Melody, even though it was released a year ago. Moving on, it's well established that feet and bus seats don't mix, but one man is getting a free pass from the public after he was snapped sleeping with his feet on a bus seat. Signs officially condemning the act were introduced to buses in August, and Facebook has since seen a spate of posts shaming commuters. This time, however, commuters appear to be on his side, arguing that he looked tired and should be able to rest. Finally, in the fight against fake news, Facebook has reportedly shut down 5.4 billion fake accounts this year. According to the social media giant, as much as 5% of its monthly 2.5 billion user base consists of fake accounts. This figure is despite advances in technology that have allowed them to catch fake accounts the moment they are created. The announcement came as part of Facebook's latest transparency report, but the fight is ongoing as Facebook says that there are still millions of fake accounts out there. That's all for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, link it in the comment section below. Back to you, Kim.
Thanks, Dylan. And finally, if you are that type for whom the weekend means hitting the malls, why not consider shopping local? ST Life digs deep into the history, of local fashion brands like Love Bonito and Style Theory to find out how they got to where they are today. Local brands once drew disdain here, but they are now seeing steady growth at home and abroad, currying favour with local shoppers. ST journalist Amanda Chai spoke to 5 local brands to understand their journey through the industry. And with me right now, I have Amanda herself. Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
So could you tell me more about a couple of the brands that stood out to you?
I think one that definitely stood out was Beyond the Vines, so women's wear label. Actually, they were an online-only store that started in 2015, but since then they've already expanded to have more than 10 physical stores across 5 countries. Yeah, so that was pretty fast. And also, they just opened their first flagship store in Funan. with their own design studio where they design everything locally. And then I guess some people might say that, you know, it's quite hasty to expand so quickly, but one thing that co-founder Rebecca said that really stood out to me was she stressed how crucial it was that they established like a strong foundation and a strong brand presence in Singapore first, and how like they're very grateful for all the support, and without that they wouldn't have gotten the attention like overseas. So I think naturally funny story how they were approached to go into like Bangkok and Jakarta. The daughters of these two retail giants in Bangkok and Jakarta were fans of the brand, so they'd already taken note of Beyond the Vines. They were customers, and then they reached out to them to ask like, hey, can we bring you guys over? And yeah, so that's how they ended up being stocked there. It's quite interesting.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So actually local brands, right? You know, currently you're saying that, you know, they have fans from all over the world, or at least in the region, right? But actually local brands haven't had the same sort of reputation that they share now, right? What's your personal take on this?
I mean, when I personally first started shopping was maybe like early to mid 2000s, when like the internet market was still kind of just slowly creeping up. But I think at that time it was mainly blog shops, you know, dominating the market. And yeah, like your only options that were like accessible to someone who didn't want to spend like $200 on a Singaporean brand, like Singaporean designer, your only options were like these blog shops or you know, the very like auntie stores and heartland malls. So yeah, it wasn't a lot of options. But I think like since then it's really gotten a lot better. So one of these blog shops was Bonito Chico. I'm not sure if like you remember, like they were on LiveJournal.
Right.
And Bonito Chico is actually Love Bonito today. So yeah, like they're a huge success story that everyone is pretty familiar with. They're designing their own collections, original collections, and like collaborating with like international brands. So I think like they've really come a long way, and the scene in general has come quite a long way.
So with that in mind, right, do you think that this is sort of like a reflection of this growing acceptance of local products?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but also people are not going to like blindly support local if the product isn't good. I think you can see quite clearly that a lot of these local brands have been stepping up their game in quality, in branding, marketing, and I think, yeah, in time to come, like they're really on track to taking on some of the bigger international brands.
Wow,
Yeah.
and we wish them all the best. So thanks, Amanda, for coming on to share more with us. And the story is going to be out tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So do stay tuned to straitstimes.com. And those are the top stories of the day. For more news and videos, do head on to our website. Once again, that's straitstimes.com. This has been Kimberly. Thank you for watching The Big Story, and we will see you tomorrow.